you, Mr. Chairman. Now, if you're confirmed, Mr. Morrissey, you would be one of the top lawyers in government, the top lawyer at Treasury. So I want to go through some of the priorities I have, and particularly people often say they think it's derogatory. They say, I'm a privacy hawk. I think it's an honor to be called a privacy hawk, and I want to walk you through some of the realities of privacy policy today, and in particular, DOGE stomping all over taxpayer privacy. The Center for Taxpayer Rights and others have sued the administration, arguing it broke the law by allowing DOGE and DHS to access tax return information. At risk, then, was the most private, personal, and financial data of virtually everybody in the United States. Home addresses, bank accounts, income levels, Social Security numbers, and much more. We had the acting IRS commissioner and chief privacy officer resigning, or they were pushed out over this. So my first question to you is, what would you do if on day one you walked in to a massive violation of privacy rights affecting millions of taxpayers?
Well, thank you, Senator Wyden, very much for the question and for the time you and your staff took to meet with me to discuss this and other issues. I appreciated that opportunity. Senator, I think maintaining the privacy protections for taxpayer information is one of the most important responsibilities that Treasury and the IRS have. I think Treasury has an obligation as a steward of taxpayer funds to look for ways to be more efficient, to look for ways to modernize systems, but whenever that's done, I'm committed to making sure that it's done in a way that complies with 6103 and all the other statutory protections for taxpayer information.
So you told me that you're familiar with taxpayer privacy law, and what else would you do besides what you just said? Because to tell me that you'll comply with a law isn't a whole lot for somebody who's got real expertise by their admission in privacy law. I was pleased when you said privacy law was important. I'd just like to figure out what in the heck you do.
Well, Senator, I think it would depend, of course, on whatever the particular program is that's being raised. But anytime we're discussing how the IRS or Treasury is maintaining taxpayer information, it's important that we are fulfilling statutory responsibilities for the privacy protections for that information, and also the data integrity responsibilities that go along with that.
Doesn't a lawyer have an obligation to stop representing a client who's breaking the law?
Senator, my job as general counsel, if confirmed, is to work with all policy components at Treasury to make sure they are fulfilling the statutory mission of the department in a lawful and appropriate way. And that's what I'll be confirmed, that's what I'll be committed to do if confirmed.
So are you telling me a lawyer doesn't have an obligation to stop representing a client who's breaking the law? Because that's a very real world question given what's going on with DOGE.
Senator, my obligation is to work with all of our policy components to make sure they understand the legal obligations that this Congress has put upon their components.
We've gone past that. I want to know what you would do.
I am committed to making sure that those components follow the law, and I know that's what the Secretary is expecting out of me and out of the legal division if I'm confirmed.
I'll just tell you again, for somebody who's really worked in the privacy space, I expect more. As I indicated in the office, I think you've got the expertise. I think you've got the track record. But you're walking into an awfully corrupt situation, and that's why I asked you about a very real example with respect to DOGE. Let me ask you about one other matter, and that's staffing at the IRS. 20 state attorneys general and others argued the administration illegally fired probationary employees and then lied again to cover it up by saying they were fired for poor performance. 2 district courts agreed and temporarily ordered the employees to be rehired. So what would you do, if confirmed, to deal with this kind of illegal and deceptive activity and to make sure that it doesn't continue?
Thank you, Senator. It's important for Treasury working with the IRS to make sure that the IRS is working appropriately. If there are operational or personnel changes that are designed to enhance collections or enhance customer service, that we're doing those in compliance with all laws. And that would include personnel laws. And if performance reviews are part of that, it's appropriate and important for the
Are you
personnel reviews to
concerned-
reflect
Are you
the
concerned,
facts.
Mr. Morrissey, that with all these firings, taxpayers wouldn't get refunds next year? Again, I'm looking for some of the real-world consequences rather than, because you're a real lawyer, unlike me, I'd like to know what you do to deal with the refund issue, for example.
Senator, I think that it's important that the IRS be focused on modernization efforts and improving and enhancing its operational capabilities, but I'm committed, if confirmed, to making sure that in doing that, the IRS is fulfilling all of its statutory responsibilities, and that includes responsibilities related to refunds.
My time's expired.
Thank you, Senator.